jumped I jumped in October of 2016.
2016, okay.
I was in public accounting before then for 12 years.
Sweet. Bernice, what about you?
I started in 2013, and I was an actor, playwright, and producer before that in Boston.
Fun. Alex, what about you?
I started in 2017, so it's been exactly 4 years this past Sunday, I think, and I was an interior designer prior to that.
Sweet, perfect. So I had a request to ask the last question first, which I think is awesome, because I was going to kind of go in reverse, but one of the questions I kind of put out to you guys is 2022. So let's flash forward 6 months, well, 5 months, 6 months. And we're looking at what's going to happen next year with all of your experiences, transactions. What do you think are some strategies you guys are looking forward to for 2022 to keep your business momentum going? So can you start with that question? Jenny, you want to start with, what do you think 2022, and I'm recording this, so I will be excited to hear. What do you think your 2022 business would be, and what is your strategy to keep that momentum that you've done so far this year to go into that year?
I mean, honestly, for me personally, 2021 was a lot of newness on a personal and professional level. So leaving the team and changing brokerages and creating this new team, and just in the last 2 months having 2 people join that, creating a brand is almost a full-time job just in and of itself, let alone the job of the job. So I'm really looking forward to continuing what I've built, having some processes get in place as far as how I market myself, what communications I put out on a regular basis, how I interact with my clients, how I'm reaching out to them. So just some of that stuff, just some continuity in that is what I'm honestly looking forward to. I'm hoping for a little bit more normalized of a market, so that my buyers have a little bit more potential to get a house. So it's been really fun in some senses in 2021 and really hard in others for them. So I'm hoping for some normalization.
Yeah, and I like that you're building some consistency with your communications with your clients. I think that's always a work in progress, but especially for you because you've literally rebranded, but you've done an amazing job. So you're doing great with that.
Bernice, I'll be right. Someone just rang my doorbell. I'll be right back.
Oh, sure. Bernice, what about you? What do you think 2022, like you've been through a lot of changes. I don't know how much you want to share with us, but 2021 was you shook your whole world up and rebuilt.
Sure. Well, that definitely touches on some of the other answers. I actually, believe it or not, wrote some little notes here.
Yeah.
And what I put for the last question, I mean, this is more of a in general overarching theme, is, growth mindset plus discipline plus vision plus teamwork. And that sounds super, super vague, but that's general theme going into 2022. And what that means to me is that I want to see our team continue to grow. I'll touch on this in one of the other questions, but we did see an overhaul of Happy New Beginnings. So not only do I want to see the team grow in numbers, but grow in every way, like with our systems and processes, with our automation, with our staff. I have like full-time staff as well as satellite staff. And of course, as you know, Drew, we really want to see the team, the brand grow and get beyond Richmond. So that's the vision.
I love that. So that's exciting to see Happy New Beginnings in other parts of the world, honestly, United States, different things. We talked about that. That's great. So Alex, what about you? What do you think 2022 looks like for you, knowing what you know right now in the past?
Yeah. So 2021 for me was really about like getting back to basics and doing the things that I did in the beginning when I first started out in real estate that may have kind of fallen off when I got really busy. so bringing some of those things back. So then 2022 for me, I think is going to be about pushing myself a little bit outside of my comfort zone, because I have sort of just been like in this same spot of working by referral and doing like my notes and Popeyes and things like that I feel really comfortable with. So I'm starting to look more into social media and how to get leads from that. And then also investment, whether it be flipping and rentals or whatever it is. While I don't, nobody says there's going to be a crash. I would like to be more proficient at helping investors. So educating myself there and what they're looking for and how to be of a better service to them, as well as for myself and my own goals.
I love that because I think it's more than just selling houses. It's diversifying even your income streams. We talked about your flip properties and just different things like that, which is exciting. And you love your interior design background, so that is a win-win, right? So
yes,
that's awesome. So if we're going backwards, if I were to, we had a crystal ball, like what was your mindset going into 2020? Like, we all I feel like got smacked in the face with the crazy pandemic. I think it ended better than we thought. Like our industry kind of thrived, actually, if you look at the numbers. But can you walk us through, and anybody can go first, maybe Bernice, you could go, but like, what was your initial, what was your mindset when we were told that we couldn't do open houses anymore, that we had to stay at home and wear the mask and all that stuff? What was your initial gut thought? And no judgment, good or bad,
no
what
problem.
was your mindset around being told, no, we can't do real estate like normal?
Well, like everybody else, our first thought was, oh my God, are we going to die?
Yeah. Am I going to be homeless?
What's going to happen? Or is real estate going to get shut down? Especially at the beginning when we didn't know which industries were going to be touched. It was just kind of a moment of I hope we can survive this. But interestingly enough, our team did not stop, not almost for half a second. But we, despite not knowing, especially in the beginning phases when it was the first couple of weeks and really nobody knew whether we were all going to die or not, we,
Right.
believe it or not, we had clients who were still pushing us to go out. All of us were kind of freaked out a little bit, but we still kept doing what our clients wanted us to do. We just took more precautions doing them. But some people seem to be completely clueless, and we were kind of are you reading the news? I mean, why are you asking us to go out? But they still needed to buy homes. The reason for buying a home didn't disappear just because COVID came into play. And so they needed a home or they needed to sell their home, and that didn't change. And it was kind of crazy in the beginning. We were it was just, nobody knew what was going to happen, but we just had the mindset of, let's keep going. We have to, pay the bills still. So let's just keep on going. At that point, it became abundantly clear that it was super important, especially as realtors, that we had multiple streams of income, because all of a sudden we were faced with some uncertainty. And so we began to think a lot about that, just on an individual basis as well as a team.
Right.
What else can we do? How can we continue to be relevant? And it also became abundantly clear to us, or at least for me, especially, to enjoy life, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And all of a sudden there were all these restrictions and just the different ways of having to do real estate. But it became clear that, hey, we better enjoy life too, and let's figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Well, my takeaway from what you just said was, first of all, our industry is a rare product that we are essential. We evolve with our clients as they evolve, if they have babies or marriages or divorces or whatever. And even in a pandemic, they still needed us. So I think hopefully that validates to everyone, our industry is a commodity. People need us. So I think no matter what the reason, they kept pushing forward. And I love also the fact of you guys really focused on diversifying and trying to find other income options, which is what we should all be doing, even if it's not in a pandemic. Real estate opens a lot of different doors. Cool. So maybe one other person, what was your mindset around 2020 when it all went down? Maybe Jenny, what about you? What do you think? where you're like, because that was when you had just come off, you were still on the team then, right? Because September is when you switched over. So you were
Yeah.
in a team, without getting too particular, weren't excited that where you were 100%.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. For me, the 2020, I think for a lot of people, it brought changes kind of everywhere. And so, the 50,000-foot view of it for me was I was walking through a divorce essentially. I had 3 young kids. I had back surgery on 2 herniated discs planned like the day before everything shut down. And then this happened. So honestly, when I looked at that question, I was like, I think, the word for me or what it was like for me was just survival. I think if nothing else, like most people, 2020 taught us like how strong we are, right? So
Yeah.
not only on a work level of one foot in front of another, and yeah, I showed a ton of homes via FaceTime so that my clients were protected in that way if they wanted to be. I wrote offers via FaceTime after FaceTime showings, which was terrifying. What if they get in the house and they hate it?
Yeah.
But like Bernice, it's like you did what you had to do so that your clients felt protected, but people still need homes. I mean, it's food and shelter is one of the basic needs of human beings. So there was kind of definitely a dip in things. And, as I walked through, obviously I had to adjust with the back surgery stuff for a few weeks and figure it out. I mean,
your numbers were killer in 2020. So to
yeah,
get through
I mean,
all
I was
that,
figuring
yeah.
to and from showing. So again, it's just, you made it work. And that's really what kind of I came away with, and my kids and I too, like you make it work and you figure it out. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
I think strength is a big aspect of that.
Well, I'm going to go a little deeper. And Alex, I'll give you this question because I think we all agree with a lot of and resonate with a lot of you guys said from 2020. Now we're in 2021. Vaccinations are happening. We're now 6-7 months into this business for this year. Alex, like, what do you think? What's the one thing this year that has changed your business for the better? Literally in the last, from January, from the start of this 2021 season. If you had to pinpoint one thing, what do you think it would be and why?
Hiring an admin.
I was hoping you were going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So hiring someone to help take stuff off my plate was definitely the biggest thing. And that's what allowed me to kind of refocus on some of those basic things that I had been doing before that had gone on the back burner when I did get so busy. So
if you were to give your own advice about like hiring an admin, what's your thought of, you hired them in 2021, mindset in 2020 could have been freaking out, the sky is falling, but 6 months later you're like, hey, what would be your advice on if somebody's on the fence about doing that? Or because if that's your one thing, I'm curious what your advice would be to them.
Do it 6 months sooner. 6 months before you think you need it, because then when you actually need it, you're like so busy you don't even know how to put the time into training that person. So
what is the reason why you think you didn't do it because you were in the pandemic and you were like 2020 the sky is falling? Is that the quote excuse or reason that you justified? Or
yeah, I think when the pandemic first hit, it was like the first month all I was hearing was, now's the time to like kind of bootstrap your business, like
cut your expenses.
Exactly. So that's what I was focused on for the first month. And then all of a sudden it was like everyone was out looking to buy a house. Like it just felt like I was nonstop go, go, go. So, while I think, bootstrapping your business, cutting your expenses, all of that is still a good, healthy practice to do. I should probably do that. Like maybe once a year, just look at like, where am I spending money that I don't need to? And then putting it into something more valuable, like an admin type role, or, something that is going to significantly improve my ability to help my clients.
Gotcha. I love that. So your one big thing was hire admin, which I think anybody who's ever hired their first real like assistant admin, everybody ends up having the same mindset of, can I afford them? I don't have time to train them. Like, maybe I really don't need the help. And then you feel this breath of fresh air that you actually could come up for some air and breathe on your own. So good.
Mhm.
Jenny, what about you? What about you? I'm gonna have all three answer because I feel like you may have different answers. What's the one thing you've done to build this momentum in the last 6 months coming out of this pandemic?
You mean besides hiring a coach?
I love that. I'm gonna pay you later. I like that. That's good. Yeah.
Um,
We meet once a month, right? So you're actually one that a lot of I meet people on a regular basis, but we go real hard at the beginning of the month, and then you're off to implement. So I appreciate that. Is that it? Do you think that like having a coach has pushed you further in the last 6 months?
Oh, I think absolutely it has. I mean, truly, I personally have like Drew, toyed with the admin thing, and I've got different people chiming in here and there to help. So I like hearing that for sure. I don't ever know what the right time is, but I feel like as I've created and switched brokers and created this team, you've been instrumental to help kind of keep me focused on kind of what's next and what I need to be doing to get things going, and at what point bring somebody on or not bring somebody on or whatever. So I direction to me is everything. I still have my piece of paper that sits next to me from our call last month, and I'm just crossing off as things get done, and moving forward. And so that's been a huge thing for me to have goals and some direction on kind of where to go, because I feel like when you jump into this business, it is just like a sea of possibilities on how best to spend your time and where to go and where to be and all the things. So honestly, I will say, I know it started as a joke, but that's, yeah, your direction and stuff has been a huge part of my growth in 2020 and 21.
And even going deeper, which I appreciate that, but like you are so task oriented. Do you think like having you like, because there's so much shiny object, there's, we're coming out of the pandemic, so to speak, even though numbers are rising again, like it's so hard to figure out what your real schedule is and figure out what a fire is versus just a small ember, right? So speaking to that, like how do you go in and day out? Yes, your coach gives you some strategies, but how do you keep your head down and focused when you've got all this other stuff going on and you've got kids and you've got just life thrown at you? Because that sounds like you really have been very intentional the last 6 months to stay on task. And I don't know that all of us can say that we are as good at that right now. So how do you give us the secret sauce of how you do that?
I think the answer is lists for me. I mean, I think we can all open our email and know this is a fire and this is not. I am a label junkie. So every single email goes into another folder that's been answered. And I've got 8 million subfolders there to keep things organized and to keep me organized. So I think it's just, you get into a routine. You wake up in the morning and here's what you do. And I start this every morning and then spend time here, and carving out time in the beginning of the month or the beginning of a week where I'm going to do something intentional with the kids or whatever it is, making sure all that's organized. And then, you got your files. And so you just, every day I'm just kind of churning through. And then if I find myself with a pocket of time, I'm looking at the list we've created on, now I'm shifting from transactional to brand to-dos and what I need to be doing there and getting out in front of people. So yeah, I mean, some days you just wake up and walk around aimlessly, but for the most part, I think it's to stay focused.
You must know me, because that's, I go in the kitchen like, why the hell am I in here?
Right, exactly. But I just think routine is a big one for me. Calendars are a big one for me. And then I always never.
I'm curious, have you always been like that? Like if you were a kid, would you think you were always been like that, or did you develop that habit over time?
No, I am I think I'm a bit type A. I was the kid that would go home from class and rewrite their notes if they weren't neat enough. So
wow. I am not that kid. Good for
I was
you.
special in that way. But at the same time, you can waste a lot of time doing that, right? So there's always balance in everything. But no, I love a list to keep me on.
Good.
Yeah, me on track.
I love that. Bernice, what about you? What's one thing that you did this year that you think has made your business better?
Sure. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. So I also have not been paid by Drew to say this, but I am going to say that coaching was a great decision for me. And, um, through coaching, this is very much tied into the answer, revamping the team. There were some things that probably the dynamic wasn't as healthy in my team previously. And some things definitely needed to change. And so Drew was able to quickly identify that and help me through that. And it was a really big change. But, he's the reason why I've, now have Catherine's here, Catherine Kern. And I can't ever thank him enough for putting us together, and then also Nikki, who is also part of our team, and also helping me with hiring an admin. I had to go through a new admin. So the whole team really turned around in 2020.
You have no original members of your team at all.
No, I mean, there were changes, and changes always need to happen. I mean, change is a fact of life. And but going through them can be so discombobulating if you're doing it by yourself and trying to kind of muck around and like trying to put it all together again. And it was so helpful to have Drew there helping me. So that whole thing was really what was the big change in 2021 is that. So
Well, I would piggyback, appreciate that, but I would say it's you, or Happy New Beginnings is the name of your team, and I think you really embraced happy new beginnings. Like, I think the culture of your team,
correct,
together, and you have a culture of communication and a symbiotic kind of, and Catherine, you can tap into that, but I would say when I stepped into your Happy New Beginnings team 6-7 months ago, it wasn't always happy and it wasn't always symbiotic. So I think it's you as a leader, like, man, I'm gonna have to make some hard decisions and have some hard conversations when you're super busy. And the one thought is just to keep it held together, like with duct tape, just to keep pushing through. But you made as a leader the decision to say, hey, we got to switch our admin, we got to switch our buyer's agents. You could have said no. You could have said, we'll just limp along, we'll push through. But why do you think you kind of ripped the Band-Aid off and really felt compelled, especially coming off of 2020, where you're just like, the sky is falling, we don't know if we're going to make any money? Like, you really, like, what was the mindset about?
Phone is going off there. Well, that's actually, I have notes on that particular question. I put, you touched on it, the team culture was of utmost importance. And now I realize how important it is to protect that team culture. And it's very interesting because a few years ago, like maybe 3-4 years ago, one of my friends who is a business coach had identified that my culture was very, very specific. And he had identified another person who was kind of working with me at the same time. And he said, you guys are not a good fit. Your approach, your culture is so different. I think you're going to clash. And I was like, no, we're fine. It's going to work because, we're adults, we can make it work. But he was so right. And, and you were right about, just identifying, like, sometimes you think it can work, but a lot of times it's just, wow, it's more painful than it needs to be. And when you find that right fit, you realize, like, there's not a week that goes by that I don't like think about our team right now and think about, wow, we have such a healthier, happier culture right now, the way it is. I couldn't be happier with our team members right now. The team is what makes the brand strong. And, you're all in it together, and it either makes your day, like, you come into work thinking, gosh, this is great. I have a great team. I'm so happy. Or you come into it thinking, oh, okay, what drama do I have to deal with today? And wearing
Jenny, you can relate to that, right? Without getting crazy.
It's so hard when you think, oh my goodness, I have drama that I have to deal with, because I am like a low drama person and I need a low drama team. I need, and so that team culture of, like, attitude, work ethic. Those are just so important to me now, like utmost. And as we just had a team meeting on Tuesday where we talked about growing our team, and everybody keep an eye open. But like the number one important thing is this person going to fit in with our team culture?
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that because it is so hard, but it's now making it so much better. Just life is too short to be hanging out with miserable people. I'll just tell you that. So, I mean, they were probably great people, and they still are, but just not in the right alignment with you. So, and Jenny, when I met you, you actually very similar, said almost the same thing, which is interesting. It's like, this is going to be hard. I'm going to do my own thing, build this team, but I'd rather do that than be in a culture that I don't align with. So,
Right.
That's crazy. Alex, we talked about your kind of one thing is your admin, which is also building your culture as well. So, so the last two questions, and we'll kind of wrap up. But I always think that the time and personal balance is always a tricky thing because this is a demanding career. Your guys' production obviously shows that you're in real estate a lot, right? So, what is your kind of advice on that counterbalance of you guys are working hard, long hours, like how have you really developed? And I think COVID has brought a lot of that to light for many of us. Can you tell us, Alex, like either your struggle or even your silver bullet, like how do you find that balance? Yeah. Because I know
so my admin being licensed helps a lot. So I would say that was a must for me, is that I need this person to be able to show homes when I'm out of town, so that I'm not like calling, 10 agents trying to figure out who can show a house for me. And just being able to handle like basic tasks. And as time goes on, hopefully, increasing that to handle even more complex tasks, like writing offers that are, strategic and things like that. But that was number one for me for getting a better personal work-life balance. I would say it's still, it's always a work in progress. Didn't
your husband say on a vacation, like finally you're actually on vacation with me? I thought that was a monumental moment where I was like, he was literally like, oh my gosh, you're like on vacation, really with me, not having your phone on.
Yeah.
Like, that took a lot to get to that point. I mean, you're 4 years in, like this is usually the year where you have to keep the momentum going. Like, how did you put the phone down? Because some of us can still not do that 15 years in business.
It was 4 days in the Outer Banks. It was like, my simple like go-to yearly vacation that is, it's pretty much on autopilot. Like I know exactly what I'm going to do and where I'm going to eat. And like there was little to no thought that went into this vacation, but I knew that I needed to enjoy every second of it as much as I could. And so I put my phone on do not disturb so that I only checked it when I was ready to check it, because that is what I find like will bring me down, is when I have scheduled time off for myself and nobody else is going to respect that. And that's okay. I can't expect, the client that I talked to 3 months ago that's all of a sudden resurfaced because they found a house they love. Like, I can't expect them to remember that I'm on vacation. Whereas I'm like, why don't they know I'm on vacation? Like in my head. So turning my phone on do not disturb, only checking it when I am ready to check it, made all the difference in the world. And I need to be better about it, because I did the same thing this past week. I like put on my calendar day off because I had just had a big client appreciation event.
Yeah,
and
you look good, but you were tired. Our coaching session was the next day, and you're like, whoa, that was rough. Talking to 60 people in one event, that was a lot.
Yeah. Well, I did not respect my own day off. I was still like texting back and forth with clients and like doing stuff like that. So I need to actually stick to that, but it's, I'm working on it. So that was huge.
All right, cool. Bernice, what are you doing with your time balance? Because I've gotten emails and texts from you early morning, late at night, and I reply to them, which is a shame on me. But how are you doing that? How are you working on that family balance? Because you got teenagers in the house, you got a lot going on. What's your piece of advice for that balance?
I'm terrible at it. I have I'm listening to everybody else's advice because I'm horrible. When I saw that question, I wrote, "What's that?" And so I'm really, really bad with that right now. And I'm going to work up to it. That's one of my goals. We actually talked about this as a team too, because
Well, it's really is hire another virus agent. It's really what it
sure.
is.
Well, that's
You guys
yes.
are
That
both
also
going
makes me busy on
crazy.
another level. But
Yeah.
yes, but having a good team in place I can trust is key, and it will happen. I call it right now. I just call it stealing moments. So I
I
steal
like that.
moments every now and then. Like right now, I have not done what you've done, Alex, which is sounds super healthy. Like put my phone on do not disturb. I think I'd actually have a mini heart attack if I did that. But I'm hoping to get to that point. I maybe have to work myself up like half a day.
You have a new fire pit. Have you
Or like
broken?
a
Have
day.
you hung out in the backyard? You have literally a beautiful new fire pit. Have you even broke that thing in?
No, I haven't.
What? It took
No,
me
I
like
haven't.
4 months to build
And
the
I know
thing.
it's terrible. I don't like, I have no advice here, really. Don't follow my advice when I'm healthy.
I hear that.
But
All right.
it's the stealing moment. So occasionally I will book myself for a massage
Yeah,
or a
you're in
float. Have
the
you ever
bubble
done a
thing.
float?
It's
A
the
float,
float
you
thing.
have to be without your phone. I'm just telling you, you have to, because you're in the water, unless you get one of those waterproof things. Don't do that though. You're in this pod. And the first time I did it, it's like an hour. And I'm like bouncing back and forth in the pod. And I'm thinking, I need to relax. I need to stop this bouncing. And I kept thinking about my phone. And then at some point, I just completely conked out. And I was like, this is good for me. I need to be in this pod where I can't be with my phone for an
Yeah.
hour. So
So maybe your advice is if you can't really control turning off the phone, just stick in a water pod that you can't get to your phone. Like just lock it away. That's crazy. I love that.
a water pod, yeah. So steal the moments, and like,
love
okay, I got to do this. Yeah.
Jenny, you have the same question. When we first started coaching, that was a big priority because you're obviously transitioning back to well, you've always been a full-time mom, but kind of doing it on your own with your kids and then finding that balance of launching this team. So what's your silver bullet for figuring out that time balance?
I don't know that there is a silver bullet. I mean, I'm a firm believer that you will spend time with where your priority is, right? So for me, it's just mentally looking at my children and going, I don't want to miss these years. So like I have different things kind of with all of them. Obviously, they're 3 different ages. So like every morning, well, most mornings, my oldest wants to walk with me. So like that's our time. We do it first thing in the morning. Usually there's no fire drills then. I'm not on my phone. We're just walking, and every morning he's like, "What are we going to talk about today? Talk about something fun." My youngest is 7, so that's more like activity based. For me, they're all in sports, so if a buyer's got any flexibility or a seller, like their games to me are my appointments, and that's how I treat them. And I say I've got an appointment at 6:30, but I can come before then, or I could stop by after 8. I mean, it's not foolproof by any means, but
It definitely seems you have more discipline of keeping your children as appointments as much as your buyer seller appointments, right? So
yeah, I really do, to the extent that I can, and I hold fairly firm to that. I mean, 3 of them in sports, it gets hard, but I do. One of the things, one of the things that was said to me early on was from someone who had been doing this a lot longer than I had. He just kind of said, he's like, at some point you have to develop, I said this to you, Drew, at some point you have to come up with what's your enough number. And that's I think about that on a regular
what's your
basis.
enough number, right?
Because this could never stop. And it's like more and more and more and more and, getting this and this. But my fear is that I'll do that and then I'll have missed this whole other big part of something that means a lot to me. So sometimes it's just figuring out quality over quantity. And for these years, staying at that level, which is enough to continue to enjoy life, but see my kids. And then when the time comes and they don't want to see me anymore, hopefully I can.
That's not nice.
I just mean, a lot of people say that when they become teenagers and they're off with their
Well,
friends.
I do have a 16-year-old and she doesn't want to hang out with me nearly as much.
Right. So my 7-year-old and my 10-year-old girl, they want me to be with them. So I'm going to try and take advantage of it while I can. Because it won't
But I think you're doing a good thing. I think real estate's addicting. Like
It
it's
is.
fun, it's stressful, it's like the craziest ride of a career, but there is a hard boundary of how much is enough. Is it enough houses I sold? Is it enough volume that I've done? If sometimes it becomes ego based, I was that guy. I want my name everywhere. I want to build the biggest this, biggest that. So that's how do you keep that like throttled in? Because I know you're very ambitious. I mean, like you're goal driven. You are action based. So how do you find what the enough is? Like, how do you check in with that? Because I think that's a hard gut check for that.
I think it's personal to every person, right? So I have a financial planner and we talk about what I want the years to look like. What do I want to be able to do? If travel's a huge deal to you, then you got to figure out how to make that happen and budget that in. So I don't
Would
necessarily.
you, if you hit your goal in 6 months, would you take the rest of the 6 months off?
I probably, no, I wouldn't take it off, but I am a believer in picking and choosing. If there's someone that wants to see $100,000 properties 45 minutes away from me and it's weekend after weekend after weekend after weekend, then I'm going to figure out something so that they still feel cared for. And maybe it's honestly referring them to another agent that is hungry for that business, right? So I'm not perfect at it by any means, but
Yeah.
I am hell bent on not doing the thing where you wake up one day and realize you missed your kids growing up. Yes.
Yeah.
So that, it's every day a mental battle to get there. And some days they're like, Mom, can you please have a job like Dad where you just sit in front of a computer all day, right? So
Yeah.
by no means am I perfect. And then I have to remind them, like, guys, think how much I'm around. I was around last Tuesday. Like Dad couldn't do that
Yeah.
stuff. He was in an office in front of a computer, but I
Yeah.
can do this. And so then they're like, oh yeah. So it ebbs and flows, and then also when things slow down, take advantage of it, right? I think
Yeah.
it's easy as a realtor, there's always something to do. I could be writing 7 more notes. I could be making 8 more calls, or I could just take the 2 hours off and pick up a kid and take them to lunch.
Right.
So there's just, you're always
And
making.
sometimes taking the kid to lunch seems harder than writing the 7 more notes. I don't know why.
1,000%. You have to be, diligent about it.
Yeah, good. The last question I have for you guys to know and get you to hop off was just that your predictions for the next 6 months. I feel by coaching yours one-on-one, offers are different. The vibe is different. Negotiations are different. I mean, I felt like we were like slaying dragons the first 6 months, like waiving every home inspection, like sight unseen offers, literally like 75 showings. It was insane. What's your predictions for the next 6 months? Do you see a different, I don't know if it's a shift or a drop or a bubble burst or whatever words you want to do? Alex, you want to take that one first, and then we'll do Bernice and then Jenny. Like, what's your gut reaction to what you think the next 6 months is going to look like, and how are you kind of going to transition with that?
Sure. I think, and I try to listen to as many podcasts or read as many articles about what to expect in the market as possible. But at the end of the day, none of us have a crystal ball. So I think what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking is going to happen based on what I'm seeing is more of a normal market, meaning like it's going to have a little bit more ebb and flow. The typical slowdown at the beginning of summer, I felt that this year, whereas last summer I did not feel that at all. And the typical slowdown around the holidays, I'm predicting that we'll probably feel that, whereas like last year, I mean, maybe there was a slight, I didn't feel it. If there was any slowdown
Yeah, you
last
were
year, I
wore
didn't
out
feel it
in
one
December.
bit. So I'm expecting those typical seasonal changes to happen. I definitely don't think it's a bubble burst. I think we're definitely going to maintain a seller's market. It's just going to not be the feeding frenzy maybe that it was before. Like my sellers are accepting offers that have inspections, that we are having to negotiate, and it's not pretty. Whereas the past year, it's like, you're having an inspection done. Wow, that's a luxury. Like,
I'm into that. Yeah.
So, some of that normal stuff coming back, but still definitely like a seller's market. I definitely think things are going to continue selling over asking. Hopefully not 100,000 over asking, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
you've had some crazy ones too.
Yeah. And we'll still see some inspection being waived portions of it and some appraisal being waived portions of it, but not like the all out craziness.
Crazy. All price points, all neighborhoods, all areas.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
probably still definitely going to see it in the, under 400 or under 300 price range. I feel like we'll see that for a very long time. So I guess the other part of it is that I'm also seeing some houses sit on the market for, more than a weekend, which is good.
Which is yeah.
Now the buyers that I know have no chance at competing, I can
They
just
see a house that's like 14 days in the market. What's wrong with it? I'm like,
yeah.
it's all just a normal life and it's not flying off the shelf. Like, it's crazy. Days on market 14 seems like, oh my God, there must be a leak in the basement or something.
Yeah.
No, it's just a normal market. So
yeah.
I like that. That's great. Bernice, what about you? What is your prediction of your pulse on the market?
Very similar to Alex. I don't think I have that much more to add, except that it seems like when the holidays come, anytime someone has an opportunity to get away, we're going to just see a much more pronounced slowdown because of people having, these last year and a half, 2 years being, just having sacrificed that time to get away or just choosing not to, go away. Now it's like in full force. That's why I think the summer slowdown was so pronounced this year, because everybody and their dog left town.
Well, and I talked to people in the travel industry. They're booking the crazy lifetime trips. They're like going on safaris and like huge mountain climbing trips. Like, a weekend trip to the Outer Banks is one thing, but now people are like taking life vacation events. And so when they can go on the holidays, they're out of pocket. So, which that'll be interesting to see if that continues, how long that continues. But
sure.
Jenny, what do you have to add? What's your predictions for the next 6 months transitioning into 2022?
No, I mean, I agree. I agree with the ladies so far. I mean, the only interesting thing I'm seeing is on homes that I've sold recently, even though number of showings is down and number of offers are down, there's usually 1 or 2 agents still writing offers as if they're competing against 24 rather than the 4 or 5 that there was. So and that's not a bust to them. It's hard as an agent to get out of the mindset of writing offers 3 months ago and like, you just can't ask for an inspection, you can't ask for an appraisal, and you got to go this. And so some people are just, this may be their 9th offer at this point, so they're throwing all the chips in, whereas we may not have to, right? So being strategic about that and realizing,
That's a good observation, because I've seen that. I'm like, they didn't have to waive the home inspection, or they didn't have to go up that high.
Yeah. But you don't know. And it's not a knock to them. Obviously, you don't know what you're up against, and what we're all kind of suffering a little bit of PTSD. And I think it's going to be important to add.
Very well put, yes.
Yeah. I mean, and
it was crazy. Like, market I've never seen in 15, 16 years of license, 25. Like, who could ever coach, teach, train that this is the market that we were going to be dealing with? But
right. And it's just going to be for sellers also like setting the expectation, because that's what they've been hearing for the last year. And so like, wait, somebody wants to have an inspection on my house. Did you not do your job? And
right.
It changed pretty quick when the summer hit.
Yeah. Well, I have one spontaneous question. What would be the advice you'd give? It could be just literally a 30-second soundbite. What would be your advice if people are listening to this, watching this, and they're not having a good year? Like, you all 3 are doing really great in your business. Like, what would be your advice? Like, hey, 2021 is not what I thought it would be. It's not turning out great for me. Is there one like piece of advice or strategy you think that if they implemented today, it could really change the trajectory of their business the next 6 months? So, I didn't give you that question ahead of time because I wanted to get your gut answer. What if you're not having a good business right now? What would you, if you were their coach, what would you tell them?
Sure, I'll go because I might have to sign off in a minute.
Sure.
Honestly, I would say be genuine and be persistent. And I don't mean persistent knocking on people's doors, but keep doing what you're doing. I really feel like this business in many ways is a feast or famine, right? And so you can go, and even I can go from oh no, what's going to be the next 3 months, and 4 people call in one day, and the next 3 weeks are slam packed, right? So I think persistence pays off. I think people see if you're hot and heavy out there with your brand and who you are, and then all of a sudden you drop off, like people notice. But if you just keep at it and you keep chipping away and then bring who you are to the table, I mean, I think there's nothing worse to me than a pitchy salesperson. So be you. I think that's what attracts people to you. It's just being genuine, being authentic.
I love
and
that.
yeah, people will call.
Yep. Be yourself, but do it consistently. That's
Yeah.
what I love that. Good. Bernice, what about you? If someone's not hitting their goal, kind of not feeling great about this year, what was your
Okay, again, I promise you that Drew's not paying me to say this, but if you don't have someone to hold the mirror to your business and tell you, here are some ways you can improve, then there's no way you're in the dark. You know, you need someone else, whether it's a coach or a friend who's not afraid to tell you the truth, or, you know, a business colleague who's really willing to look at your business and say, here's some things that could help you. Then you don't have that accountability or even direction to know, what can I improve? What should I improve? What should I do differently?
I love that. I think that's so true. We all need that gut check. We might think we're doing better or worse than reality, and that third party, I think, does a good job of that. Love that. Alex, what would be your piece of advice to someone's not hitting the mark right now and not feeling super great about the business? How do they focus on getting momentum back up for themselves?
I'd probably say the same thing that I was talking about earlier, which is just kind of getting back to the basics of like, what did you do when you first started out in real estate? And for me, it was a lot of just like one-on-one with another human, you know, whether it's a note or a phone call or a coffee or the event that I just had. What is it that you enjoy doing? And just keep doing that. And, you know, you might not see an immediate return, but a few months from now, it'll definitely start paying off. So, like my client appreciation event was like, wow, I haven't done something like this in
Have you had
over
that many
a year.
people ever attend your
No.
client? That seemed like the
How
most,
many was it?
It was like 60 people, and
That's
that
awesome.
was it was,
that
you
was a
know,
lot,
all of
and
us
she had a River City
bowling.
roll, and it was just, she was exhausted.
Yeah.
It's amazing how we have the high I super social, like we have now, she doesn't have the endurance.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not used to talking to 60 people at one time.
Yeah. People were
So
ready to come out and socialize and do an activity that they hadn't done in a long time. So
I
yeah.
think that's always the answer, is the foundational, get back to the basics. If you're not hitting your numbers, we feel like there's a silver bullet, but you just go back to when you were year one. You know, new agents, you know, you mentor them or see them in your offices, and you're like, you're telling them to do those core things. Maybe that's all of us need it. I love that, because you're never too big or too successful to still do the core basics and connect with what Jenny says. Have somebody that's holding you accountable, but Bernice, and then also Jenny, do it your way. Make it authentic. You know, it doesn't have to be cookie cutter. It can be definitely unique to you, but still it's a foundational thing. So, well, good. Well, this is a good halftime kind of check-in. I love hearing this, and we'll send this out to everybody in the group. We'll post it in Facebook. I'll put an email out there too. I took a ton of notes. Thank you guys. Is there any last minute, anybody have any burning questions before we need to hop off? We cover good stuff. Catherine's like, we're good. Thank you guys so much. You guys are rock stars, and I appreciate you guys being a part of our Freedom family. It's really
Thanks
awesome.
for having us, Drew.
All right, we'll push out some houses.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.